Okay. Not going to go through the lesson topics in great detail. Sorry, you're probably getting motion sickness here because I'm too impatient with my arrow key. So this is our topical outline. This kind of just shows how we go through. If you're looking carefully at the outlines in the PowerPoint, you'll see that these, the Roman numerals mark our place. Essentially, this course comes in two parts. There's sort of a basic atmospheric science and chemistry part. We learn a little bit about the atmosphere. We learn enough chemistry to have a conversation about chemical composition and do some accounting, and then we've got to learn a little bit about electromagnetic radiation or light, because that is the currency in the radiation economy, if you will, that drives the climate systems. So this is kind of fundamental chemistry stuff. There will be points at there where you're going to say, I thought this was a course on climate change and blah, blah, blah. Why are we doing this? I try to keep that to a minimum, but again, we're just trying to make sure everybody's got the same fundamental skill set in their toolbox. And just be patient through the first week and a half or so. We will dive headlong into the climate change issue before we're done. So it starts out as sort of a high school chemistry course with some things and some broader considerations. And then we get really focused on the Earth's radiation balance and some of these very specific things here. And then for the last couple lessons, really try to tie this all together and see where we are. So if you're patient through the basic stuff, I think you'll find the stuff coming fast and furious here. Okay, as for discussions, there'll be 7 of these through the course of the term. And again, all of these are based on a chapter or two from our discussion text, Field Notes from a Catastrophe. And the pace for these things is, again, about 1 every other day, although they sort of spread a little bit and actually kind of connect together. And that's one of the things I'll try to explain here in terms of pace. Each one of these is worth 10 points. Those are for your responses and your participation. And you can make some of those up by extra responses if you miss a few. From my experience last summer, so that this was a really interesting part of the course, and half, 2/3 of the course really sort of took place in this and kind of bounced their ideas off of one another. And when you have a mix of students of various different majors in the course, you get some interesting perspectives on this, and this is the thing that we all need to talk about. So it's kind of neat. I'm kind of used to doing this in class, so running a glorified chat room is still a little weird to me. But it's a different way to do things, and I think different personalities come through in it. So anyhow, for the discussion parts, there's 2 parts of this. The first part is essentially what I call the content part. Which is due by noon on the posted discussion day. You have the window to post is open 24 hours prior to that, so it runs from noon to noon, but it's due on noon of the day of the scheduled discussion. And there's 2 parts to that. One of them is kind of challenging, in that you'll have to take this chapter and try to express the main idea in a sentence or 2. And this is challenging because this is journalistic, really kind of stream of consciousness sort of writing. In fact, at its worst, it might be really rambling. But she makes a point, sometimes subtle, sometimes not, and kind of, works her way around to make it. Just in terms of, learning general things that we need to learn in college, taking a complex thing or a highly variable thing and connecting the dots and expressing it in a short, concise main idea is one of the most important skills that I think you should develop. So that's kind of the challenge here. And what I will do is, if I see people doing a good job of that, is I'll make some of those responses public. Otherwise, they're private. But if there's ones where I think, okay, this is really what I think the main idea is and it's well said, I'll make those public. And then you can look at them and say, oh yeah, that's what he wants me to do, is to write a sentence or 2, really what it is. Maybe 2 sentences if it's a 2-chapter assignment, but you get the idea. I really do think there's a central point to each one of these. And again, identifying the central point of something that is complicated and varied is a very important skill. Something none of us do an adequate job at, in my opinion, including me. The other thing is a content response. I'll ask you a question or 2. That's really sort of a did you do the reading kind of thing, and that's due also at noon with the main idea thing, and there's no need to make those public. At 6 a.m. each morning, and I know everybody will getting up at 6 a.m. to participate, but that runs from 6 a.m. on the posted discussion day all the way till noon the following day, just to let those conversations ramble right up until the window opens for the following discussion. the discussion will take place. And what I will do is I'll have 2 or 3 questions sitting there to sort of try to get the conversation started. And you respond to them, and then you respond to your classmates, and vice versa, and presumably a conversation develops. And my experience from last summer, the first time for this experiment, was that that is indeed what happened. So the idea here is that you get 2 points for each response, up to a total of 10 for each discussion, although there is 2 bonus points. And one of those responses must be a primary response to the question. One of them must be a response to one of your classmates' responses. And there is no limit. I mean, you can participate as much as you want. You know, it's kind of unfortunate when a couple people kind of dominate the whole thing. It would be nice to see the things balanced, but I'm sure that there will be people who participate a lot and people who just participate less, and, you know, whatever everybody's comfortable with. I do think this is part of the course where we get a lot out of it, especially when we get that, okay, this is going on, what are we supposed to do about it question that inevitably comes up. The latter part of this does talk about solutions, and though it's kind of a dire discussion text in some respects, I think it does end on a rather, at least it offers some positive outlook for some things that we could be doing. One of the things you need to do is to go to the D2L board and say that you understand the discussion text, and just make a little thing. That's part of those introductory tasks that we have that you have to do on the first day. And then here's a list of the discussions. Note that where I had to cut one discussion out to make it fit, and I just took chapter 6 of the book out of the discussion. It's a neat chapter. It's about things they're doing in the Netherlands. I encourage you to read it, but if I had to let one of them go to make the course fit into the winter term, that's the one I decided to let go. So that is the discussion. Okay, just a few final comments about pace. Again, in sort of for general things, and I'll hold this up a little bit more so you can see it this time, this color document is sort of a global reminder, so you can look from day to day and say, all right, this is what's going on. But what you'll see again is that there's about 1 lesson a day and about a discussion a day. Again, the discussions kind of extend in advance. Let's just fix that. You know, the content window opens a little bit in advance of the discussion day, and the discussion trickles a little bit past the discussion day, but it's about 1 every other day. And again, the idea to keep those open, since everybody's got to participate and you guys are working and doing who knows what during winterim, to make sure everybody has some flexibility. Okay, so the blue things on this thing are discussion. The green things on this thing are video lessons. You can obviously do those anytime you want. If you want to sit down and do them all the first day of the course, that's fine. But I've sort of paced it where you do 1 a day. And then the purple things are assignments, things you get points for, which are our quizzes and our tests and our final essay, and these MWA assignments, which again are a calculation of your personal carbon inventory and a critique of a couple of web pages. And I put start and end dates on those, just because the idea, the visual calendar for me helped me kind of saying, all right, when do they have time to do this stuff in a term that's otherwise very tight? But there is the flexibility. You can get started on those anytime that you want. Let me say one thing about this MWA assignment. You're going to need a utility bill of some form, presumably from your place or your parents' place, so start tracking that down now. And then the detailed version of this, I don't need to hold that up, it's right here, is on this document, which I may or may not change, but these are the ideas here, is that, you know, stuff that you should be thinking about the first day, you know, doing this introductory stuff and starting the first lesson today, doing the first homework assignment, and getting ready for discussion. You know, by noon today, you could post your first content response. Although D2L is going to be out on this first day, so I extended that a little bit. I'm usually a little bit flexible because it takes a day or 2 before we get the rhythm set. But then each day it kind of says, okay, here's what we should be doing. Deadlines in this thing are on bold, and there's some advance warning on things. And then the quizzes are kind of set out in bold caps, and you can see where those are. You know, and the intent here is to be flexibility. So if you got something going on and you have a conflict with one of these things, I'm perfectly willing to be flexible. But otherwise, take a look at this thing. If there's any questions about this, you can email me or put them on the discussion board. But I think having a day-by-day list like this makes things pretty straightforward. That's the course, and we can move forward and get on with it at this point.